This is chapter 131, and we're moving around the world. This is The Flower of Freedom by Deborah J. Reeves. This chapter is 131. Please take your seat. We're about to read New Year's Eve in Paris. Here we go. The Parisian group of friends was sad that Marie went to Canada for Christmas and New Year's Eve that year. Aki put on a happy face, but he was grateful that she had chosen to stay with him until the day before Christmas. Landing in Montreal on Christmas Eve was a concession to his age, he thought, and it was a mark of her genuine goodness and kindness toward him. Her friends were not sad exactly, but they missed her profoundly, and no one more so than Philippe. He had dreamt about kissing her lovely lips at midnight that year. It was not to be. The rest of the group celebrated at a fashionable venue that year. Michaud and Suzette were seated first. They waited patiently for everyone else to arrive. They waited through the 7-course meal, and they listened attentively to the round-table discussion of the building they would one day construct together. Philippe did not need much prompting to describe it again. He spoke about the flexible skin that would cover the building, and Michaud jumped in to explain that it would absorb solar light and be impervious with strands of a new fiber called Kevlar. Once he had the floor, he went on at length about the wind turbines on the roof and the novel concept that the building would be entirely self-sufficient. He deferred to Joseph about physics of the building, and Joseph often gave credit to Bertie for hammering out the engineering challenges. After a few moments, he passed the baton to Suzette, who explained the provisions for clean air, ideal hygiene, and materials that would make human existence there quite pleasant. She ended by wishing Marie was there to share all the details that she might have forgotten. "She's here in spirit," Philippe said in a wistful tone. "They both are." Nicole jumped in to boost the mood and to explain the self-sufficiency with water and waste processing. They had heard everything before, but no one minded going over it all again. And it was the most interesting aspiration of their collective lives. It all went along quite predictably until Michaud asked if there would be a nursery floor. Nicole jumped in to respond that they had always planned for a hydroponic floor that would bring along enough food to feed the entire building. "But you know that," she said as her voice faded. And then she paused. She looked up into Michaud's grinning eyes. Instantly, Nicole swiveled her head to look at Suzette's grinning eyes. Everyone at the table sat looking back at the grinning pair. Joseph leapt up, knocking over his chair, and pandemonium broke out at the linen-top table. They all spoke at once, and not one of them got any response from either Michaud or Suzette except the grinning nods. Elegant diners all around frowned, and then they smiled as a magnum of champagne arrived at the table, and the friends crowed with delight. Before they could toast the new life in their midst, the waiter arrived with a special beverage for Suzette. It was a fruity concoction, festooned with a pink umbrella, a blue umbrella, fruit slices, and there was a helium balloon tied around the base of the glass. The balloon announced, "Bébé." As Suzette looked with a bit of horror at the glass that looked more like a vase than a beverage glass, Michaud kissed her with tears in his eyes, and then he unexpectedly put his head down into her lap, and she ran her fingers through his curls. Joseph was having none of that mushy stuff. Suzette was going to be a father. That would take planning. He was on the job. He turned to Philippe and he said, "He'll need time off when the baby comes." "Of course," said Philippe. "As much as he needs," said Joseph assertively. Of course, said Philippe. This is more important, said Joseph. Of course, said Philippe. And you will do all his work until he returns. Of course, said Joseph, and they laughed and toasted all the new constructions in their future. To life, said Joseph, and they all drank deep draughts with nothing but hope in their hearts. The news was so exciting, but it also made everyone reflect on what the future would hold. They had to get busy, they all thought independently. Life was changing. Bertie was now a father. No one would have guessed that Bianca would shirk her duties as a mother and leave him all alone with their brand new child. Michaud and Suzette would have an altered life soon, as well, but one for the better, they all knew. In those moments, Joseph had the urgent feeling that he could no longer dally. In those moments, he made up his mind that he would ask Nicole to marry him. What had he been waiting for, he wondered? There was no one as spectacular as she was. He wanted to get down on one knee right then and there, but he wanted Nicole to have her own special moment, and he loved Michaud and Suzette enough to ensure that their special moment was not intruded upon. Nicole was oblivious to all the machinations in Joseph's mind, and she was in wonderment at the courage it took to bring a new life into the world. She resolved to work even harder on the building to ensure that it was a place that Michaud and Suzette would love to bring their new child. We always planned for a hospital floor, she stated, but I think we need to give more thought to a maternity wing and a nursery. That's the end of chapter 131. Another new life is on its way. I thank you for coming and sharing this with us, and I ask you to consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing so that you don't miss the next chapter, which is called The New Year Begins. I remain your friend, Deborah. Bye-bye.